Getting cuts. Castleberry and Mittinger's invention of a new sales and compensation model, the plan, was apparently hatched by the two between 1943, when they met at the aircraft factory, and September 1945, when they signed a contract with Renborg to take over all sales and marketing rights. While at the aircraft factory, Castleberry and Mittinger frequently discussed, quote, the mechanics of sales. Reflection and analysis may have been prompted by the fact that Mittinger was not doing any sales work after so many years of accumulated experience. Castleberry was nominally still a Neutralite salesperson, but apparently gaining little or no income from it. His marketing efforts on the radio for his counseling services and book sales were also not bearing much fruit. Their talks would have included classic tales of triumphs and failures, hopes, complaints, and near successes that veteran salespeople have always engaged in. Mittinger likely recollected and reflected on his past work, which spanned as many as 20 years and included selling cemetery plots. Yet their talks, perhaps guided by Castleberry's orientation to the psychology of persuasion, as outlined in his book, moved beyond swapping war stories to a deeper inquiry. Mittinger saw his most productive salespeople promoted to sales management, costing him personally by losing, quote, his cut of the man's sales, and requiring him to, quote, search for, recruit, and train a replacement salesman. In conventional sales management, promoting the more productive salespeople is believed to incentivize them. In the same vein, quote, recruiting and training new salespeople is thought to be the sales manager's primary role, for which a cut of the other salespeople's labor is his additional compensation. Mittinger had a different interpretation that apparently came from a deep well of frustration, resentment, and disappointment. Promoting higher performing salespeople, the veteran informed Castleberry, had only, quote, limited Mittinger's incentive to expand the business. Mittinger went on to proclaim that if he ever got his, quote, own deal someplace, he would figure out a way so that, quote, I keep the income from the people I develop. Yet, if the manager would get a cut of their sales forever, how would the recruited salespeople benefit? If sales management were not replaced from among the ranks of higher performing salespeople, where would it come from? If the sales manager's role and income were vested and protected, how would the company prevent resentment from the rank and file salespeople? Most important, in protecting the sales manager, what incentive would be provided to the salespeople who, after all, are the ultimate engines of all sales revenue? Mittinger's vision of a perpetual and ever-expanding base of income gained from more and more salespeople's work could have just been a vision of someday having a highly secure position at the top of a growing sales organization with steadily increasing income, a sales manager's utopia. Hardened field experience would preclude such an idealistic aspiration. In any event, Mittinger's dream of a never-ending font of income produced by other salespeople was expressed in the larger context of the, quote, mechanics of sales, and while discussing a new type of sales organization that might be applied at Neutralite. As the Mittinger-Castleberry plan was later implemented at Neutralite, the puzzle of incentives, commission flow, and management security would be resolved by offering every successive salesperson the same opportunity to get his own cut off his own recruits forever. Effectively, all salespeople were offered the same incentive to become managers if they could recruit new salespeople below them. But most important for Mittinger's dream of a protected position, the plan would not reduce the income of the upper-level managers, the position he would occupy if he ever got his own deal someplace. In his plan, the incomes of the upper-level managers would not be displaced, but also be increased. Even as underlings aggressively added more salespeople and revenues grew from their labors, the upper position would not be threatened, but would instead be enhanced and enriched also. These were the banal beginnings of an endless sales chain, the primary element of what is now called multi-level marketing. It was formed out of the common clay of door-to-door selling, so often promoted as a field of dreams, yet experienced as drudgery, rejection, and most notably, disrespect. By 1945, it was already becoming an obsolete model as retail locations reached virtually every town and village and mass advertising replaced the persuasive peddler. The plan differed radically from traditional door-to-door sales. In Mittinger and Castleberry's view, if you worked for Avon or Fuller Brush, popular door-to-door selling opportunities of that time, you were, for all practical purposes, an employee. You had a regular job. If you did well, you might become a district manager, but you never got much more than a salary or bonus. The plan, as it eventually developed, changed all that. It allowed industrious distributors to build their own distribution chain. It was a system bound by personal links and limited only by one's ability to forge them, offering a huge incentive to expand a network of agents as quickly as possible. Mittinger joked to Castleberry that if the first 10 agents each recruited 2 agents, there would be 20 more agents, and if they in turn recruited 2, there would be 40 more agents, and if they worked hard enough, quote, everyone on earth would eventually be selling the product. The vision of an endless chain of salespeople was born not out of a grand plan for a vast new industry which did develop, or as a plot to cause losses to millions of people, which it did. It emerged from the mundane experience of a seasoned old cemetery plot sales manager who dreamed, as all sales managers have, of a protected and growing income. It was conceived out of a longing for a safe haven from the insidious competition of younger upstarts, from the brutal realities of market limits and fluctuating demands for commodity products. It was imagined as a form of deliverance from the humiliating circumstances endured by sales managers the world over, a transformation of a thankless role as custodian of a churning sales force into the captain of a regenerative money machine. In the new plan, the deserving sales manager could finally accrue equity. This equity would not be issued in company stock. It was also not dependent on the value of the product or the larger market conditions that limited a product's marketability. This newly created equity would be based on the only true currency known in the sales manager's world, the labor and expenditures of recruited salespeople. The real commodity to be marketed under the new plan would not be Avon-type cosmetics or Fuller Brush gadgets. It would be the salespeople themselves, the clay of the sales manager's craft. Appropriately then, new managers would be called independent business owners. This new form of ownership, unlike real estate or shares of stock, would infinitely and perpetually increase. No longer would the manager be bound to the fortunes of the sales force. The sales force would be perpetually bonded to their upline managers in what would later be termed lines of sponsorship. Breaking free of decades of disrespect, the managers would be exalted, the term later universally applied in sales training of multi-level marketing. Castleberry's psychology precepts would provide the rules and values for the salespeople, not just of business, but also of living, and the business would become a way of life. The sales manager's profligate wealth and conspicuously displayed lifestyle, gained from his elite position at the top of the chain, would be presented to all below to envy and to emulate as the ultimate achievement of life, proof of, quote, total success. In the coming decades, hundreds of millions of people all over the world would avidly and some desperately plunge into a multitude of MLMs, each a direct descendant or clone of Neutralite. The potential of an exponentially expanding recruiting chain would become their beacon of hope for a better life. All would be shown charts and videos explaining that if they just recruited a few others who duplicated the process, they would soon have thousands in their chain, all providing cuts to them every month.